We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata. Mike, how you doing?
Better than I was on Thursday.
That's good to hear. For the Bengals, not so much, to be
Oh,
completely
wow.
honest
It
with
was a
you.
good game. I mean, typical Bengals Twitter after a loss. I mean, it is what
That
it
was
is.
a good game to you?
It was just no, like it was a good football game to watch. Like taking fandom out of it, it was back and forth down to the wire. They lost in the end. That stinks. I know that it becomes all reaction season with like this is the end of the Bengals season.
No.
It's all over, and then other people are like, "No, this means Joe Burrow might be lower than C.J. Stroud in somebody's rankings."
No,
It
no,
just
no,
who
no, no,
cares?
no. None of that. None of that. I
I
don't.
know there's like not a lot of the first half wasn't fun, but I had a lot of fun that second half. I don't know, like the Bengals coming back, and then yeah, the Tyler Boyd drop at the end kind of stinks. I don't know. Maybe I'm just on my medication for this COVID, and I just had fun. But I came away and I was like, man, that stinks. But teams lose to these young upstart teams all the time. The Ravens lost to the Colts a couple weeks ago. This Texas team lost to the Panthers 2 weeks ago. This stuff happens. Like this isn't a sign of like, oh, the Bengals just aren't that team this year. It's just like put it in perspective. Like they've won 4 in a row. It's hard to win 10 games in a row in the NFL. You're gonna drop a few. That's why you don't want to start so slow. But when I watched it, I didn't come away thinking like the Bengals are toast. Like this is the worst thing I've experienced. I know you're at the stadium. I haven't experienced. Well, I experienced one Bengals loss live. That was in Pittsburgh, though. I have not gone to
Mhm.
Cincinnati and watched them lose yet. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, the game it stunk in the end to lose, and Hendrickson's injuries and uncertainty. But really, I don't know. They came back, and I was impressed by that at the very least. The Boyd long play to get down to the end zone, that kind of led into something that I think gets a little bit overstated sometimes is like, oh, but you got to bleed out the clock so they don't have time to take the ball back. And I'm like, the most important thing here is score a touchdown.
And
Like,
that's what they wanted to do.
yeah,
You
like
know?
if Boyd could score a touchdown, he should score a touchdown there, which he
Yeah.
couldn't. He got tackled. And then that's why that quarterback draw on second down, I was like, that's just a waste of a down. Like, I guess you're making him use a timeout, but I mean, shoot, come up with an easy pass or something that might work because both the passes that were thrown had a chance. Irwin and Burrow not on the same page on the
Yeah.
one play where there was a lot of room to the flat, but Irwin was running an out and up. One of those situations you wish you had T because Burrow was kind of like, oh, don't even run this up. Like I'm going to throw this out because you have so much room over there. But Irwin thinking I have to run this as the playbook says, runs it up, turns around, can't find the ball in time, and then the Boyd one. Unfortunate. Not to say he lost the game, and we'll get to the defense, which in my opinion was worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to say he lost the game. He didn't win the game. It's unfortunate to have 2 drops. I mean, I don't know if he's dropped another. Has he dropped maybe one ball other than that all season? He's usually very reliable.
He
This
really
felt
is.
like he dropped that one pass, 20-yard pass when the offense was stalled, and that just felt like, ah, man, this just isn't the Bengals' day. But then he had the chance to redeem everything and dropped it again. And that's just one of those situations to me where I'm like, not the Bengals' day. You're not firing on all cylinders. They almost were able to pull it out. They didn't deserve the win, but they made it a very competitive game. It was a close one. I know a lot of fans want to be angry and mad and sad about how this ended up, but to me, I was glad to have seen a great game, and I wish it went the other way, but maybe I'm too optimistic about it. What did you think?
So I did just get back from the stadium, and I will say this: there's so many different emotions you can put into that game, and you could look at it and say the Bengals should have lost by worse because the
Yeah,
Houston Texans had more opportunities in the first half, and things worked out for the defense when it comes to getting turnovers. But at the same time, the Cincinnati Bengals had opportunities in the red zone. So I would say this, and I try to always look at the glass half full for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm going to use this comparison, and I hate everything about it, but I'm going to use it. 2021, 2022, 2023. They're in the same exact position that they've been
yeah,
in the
time is
last 3
more.
years. The
With
same
a tough
exact
schedule.
position that they've been in. There's a difference, I feel, because you look at the division. And I would say Baltimore losing today helps the Cincinnati Bengals, but the biggest thing is the short week and playing the Baltimore Ravens. You still have the
Sure.
Steelers in front of you, you still have the Cleveland Browns in front of you, both of them winning today. Obviously, with the Cleveland Browns playing the Ravens, that's beneficial in some way, and the Ravens dropping one doesn't get them too far ahead in the AFC North. But for the Cincinnati Bengals, they had this opportunity. They were at home, and I'm not one to throw that on Tyler Boyd. I know how a lot of people felt as soon as it happened. Tyler, you got to catch that. That was extremely important. That's the game. That's ball game. But I think Joe Burrow brought up a few good points in his post game. He said we wouldn't have been in that position as far as the field if it wasn't for Tyler Boyd in the first place. And I agree
Right.
with them. You know, they were able to do that, and it's just unfortunate. Of course, you want Tyler Boyd to make those catches, and it felt for me offensively. And we'll get to the defense in just a moment. But for the offense, it felt so conservative. Like they couldn't do anything after that first drive. And it felt a little bit of a repeat of the Seattle game, but obviously they won that game here. But it just felt like the urgency wasn't really there. And then when they got urgency, I don't even blame Joe Burrow for throwing the interceptions. Like it happens. One was a really bad ball by him. The other one happened too. You're trying to get aggressive. You're trying to score some points. You're trying to, score a touchdown. I don't mind it, but those were opportunities too. I don't think this game showed me, they're without Tee Higgins. They can't get anywhere. They're not doing anything. But everybody needed to step offensively. And the offensive line, we've praised them plenty over the last few weeks. I don't feel like Alex Kappa, obviously going back and watching the tape, you'll be able to see more from the offensive line. He didn't have his best game. So offensively, we'll stay with you first, and then we'll get to the defense because the defense is the biggest eye-opening problem for me in this game. And I think they'll be fine, but at the same time, it's a little scary with a few of the unknowns after that game. But offensively, I feel like you can point the finger at a lot of different people on the offense, including Zach Taylor.
Yeah. Did you think that interception that bounced off Drew Sample's hands, was that on Burrow, or do you think that was on Sample, or do you think it was just is that the one you're saying was a bad ball? Because I mean, I don't know if it was perfect, but I do think that I'm not even the biggest Tanner Hudson supporter, but if they had Hudson in there, he might come down with it because that's just Drew Sample's just not that type of athlete I know he has a 9-something RAS score, but like literally on the field, he's not that type of athlete to sprint on a seam route, be able to turn around, jump in the air, high point a ball, and come down with it. That just felt like, bro, I think this was unnecessary. You did not on first down need to throw a top shelf seam ball to Drew Sample here. I think you're just taking a heat check. The other one, all on him. Yeah, I don't know how he didn't see that corner dropping back like that. But yeah, when I saw that Drew Sample one,
and not they should have been. I personally, it was the offense in the first half that disappointed me more than the second half interceptions.
Yeah, I agree. And what it felt like to me, I mean, I want to go back and see, but it felt like they stopped because when teams sell out to kind of try to take away their deep ball, they just let them and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll just take all this underneath stuff. But then now teams are kind of like closing in on that stuff real hard. So it felt like in the second half, they kind of opened it up like, okay, they're selling out to take away the deep ball, but we're still just going to throw it there. Like we're still going to take our shots. We're just going to challenge those safeties. Like they're like cover 2. You've got 2 deep safeties there. Who cares? Throw it. Like that safety is not a corner, first of all. And second, like they can't cover everybody downfield. So make them actually expand back like that and really commit to it rather than be able to show that and then move and be able to play the stuff underneath. I felt like that was the difference where they ran 4 verticals quite a few times. The Lord's play to some people. That was, and usually has hinge options in there on the outside in case the wide receiver feels like they're not getting past the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those plays, Yossi Vash hinged and Burrow threw it as the go ball. And I was like, come on, you got to run that out. Yeah, there were a few moments that were a little upsetting, but it was fun to see the offense get opened up like that again. And that Burrow throw where he rolled to his left down the field, 40 yards downfield to Chase was unbelievable.
It was. We should be talking about that. We should be, and I know we will, and obviously we'll look ahead. And it's a short
Those
week.
things are kind of stuck in my mind. Like, I mean, I guess like maybe that's just different than what a lot of people are feeling, but those throws and like they could have won the game, and the defense didn't finish it out, and especially they just didn't tackle Noah Brown at the end. Like they've got a backup kicker. We don't need to. I mean, he probably makes it, but we don't. Instead of stripping the ball, get the guy down. Like that's what's most important right now. But there were a few moments like that. It feels to me like one of those. I feel like we have this game every year, and this was a
It's
more
like the
exciting
Jets game
version
of
of it.
2021.
Sure, you can think, but this is a much better offense that they're
Yes.
facing. At least it's not like Mike White or something like that. This was a very good rookie quarterback having a very good game. He's showing that he's most likely the offensive rookie of the year. And with the state of quarterback play across the league, he's in the MVP discussion. And I think it's CJ Stroud made that one bad throw in a time you really can't make that throw. Threw it right to Cam Taylor-Britt. But other than that, I mean, the guy played lights out, and that just happens. I mean, we can think of all the times that Joe Burrow has just carved up a defense. And do you think that defense is just like, oh man, that defense stinks? Like
No,
that's
because I
just
would think of the 49ers defense. And
yeah.
I don't think that defense is bad.
Yeah, and like maybe there's reason to think that this Bengals defense showed that it has a lot of issues, and I think there are things that seemed un that didn't seem very good in this game from them. We'll get to it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Like I watched the game, and I guess it's just a different opinion. I it's upsetting. They are last in the division. They're also over 500. It's upsetting that they'll drop this game. I don't think it was a must-win game. Uh, I think this was a should-win game and could-win game. But when we talked, I think I was bringing up the most important things were the trenches on the offense. They lost that battle. And then I think I said something like the Bengals defense has the Bengals run defense has the edge on paper. Well, they didn't in this game. And
Oh.
that completely flipped it to me where it made things a little not easy for Stroud, but when you create run pass conflict like that in this game, it's going to make playing defense really, really difficult. And this was a team that really couldn't run the ball. And they only had one running back that they used. It's not like they were cycling guys in and out. They were always fresh. Singletary was the only guy out there, and he had the best game of his season. And I haven't looked at his career, but I'm sure this might be up there.
So I want to flip to defense right now. Look, offensively, there's some things to work on. I personally just felt like there's just a lot of just missed opportunities, little mistakes. But I do not put this game on Tyler Boyd. I never felt that. I was disappointed when he didn't catch the touchdown, but I still had faith that loose defense would be able to finally just get a stop there, because they were getting a few in the second half, but it was disappointing. And look, we can praise them all the time. They always find a way to get a turnover. Felt like they got the turnover late, that they were going to be able to just really kind of seal the deal. Game's going to be over. Good stop for them. The Bengals are going to put a touchdown in the end zone, and then they're going to make the Texans try to score another touchdown to get the go ahead. But it didn't work out for them like that. Defensively, I'll say this. This sounds like such a hot take. I almost felt like Sam Hubbard was missed more than Tee Higgins today.
I don't know. Maybe.
They couldn't stop the run.
Yeah. Would that have helped that much? Like, I don't think having him would have helped.
You don't think CJ would have gotten a little more pressure too?
Well, you talk about the run defense first.
We'll talk about, you don't think Sam Hubbard was missed today?
I think he was missed. I think Tee Higgins was missed.
Yeah.
What do you think was happening in that first half?
Yeah, I mean, that too. But I would say, not to say that Tee Higgins is not, when he's out there, he's absolutely amazing. We just saw him come off his best performance. But the defense was so disappointing that I feel like you needed an extra defensive playmaker out there versus what I needed on offense, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess when I was diagnosing what was going bad with the defense, to me, a lot of that was the interior. It was the same thing we talked about before, and they stepped up in the 49ers game. But when I was watching Carter and Tufele get knocked off the ball 10 yards, that seemed like a bigger issue. Like, that's not something that Hubbard's going to really make up for. And I think he probably would have brought a little more pressure. Maybe got a little too excited with some of these guys, like, oh, it's, we're going to give Murphy and Osai and Sample a chance. And none of them really showed up too much. I mean, I'll go back and watch. None of them had sacks. I know Murphy was near the passer at least once because it got replayed.
Didn't feel like it.
With the helmet to helmet as he fell down. But I don't think I would say Murphy had a big impact on this game. I want to go back and watch. But at the end of the day, it felt like the interior was getting gashed, and then they weren't making tackles, whether that's the linebackers or the safeties. I mean, Scott missed tackles, Pratt missed tackles. I can't remember if Hilton missed tackles too. And those things can't happen. It felt to me a bit like the defense that we were watching in like week 1, week 2 with all the missed tackles, but to go with it was much worse coverage. No pressure either. I think that's a big problem. I think week 2 might be a good example
I
for
think
what I
week
felt
2
like
is a
the
very good
defense.
example.
Yeah, like Lamar had all day. Lamar was throwing to
Yep.
guys that were wide open. Lamar, was able to run the ball. They're getting thrown out of the club, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of plays where I'm watching 95 get thrown out of the club. Some of those guys
Watching CJ
pushing,
run it in.
pushing downfield. Yeah, I think Sam Hubbard would have helped run defense, but at the end of the day, what they need, in my opinion, is still, and they can't do it anymore.
No.
What really hurt them in this game was when BJ Hill and DJ Reader go to the bench. The guys that come in for them can't really stop the run. And neither one's really a good pass rusher either. We didn't see all the clamoring for Tufele all year, and he didn't really do much as a pass rusher, and he did a lot of negative stuff as a run defender. So it's tough. I think another issue that is very prominent in this game was if you have a good left tackle, the Bengals pass rush doesn't work that well. It's like you got to move Trey Hendrickson. Let's just get.
I don't know why they don't though.
Because he used to be a third, so he can rush from either side, from what I understand. I think I mostly saw him rush from the offensive left like that. But my goodness, Laramie Tunsil is on one side, and the other side is George Fant. Get him against George Fant. Do that. Like, he doesn't need to run against Laramie Tunsil every down. Tunsil's a really, really good tackle. So when I'm watching that stuck out to me as like they shouldn't need the other edge to be healthy because that side's weak. Like, they should just move Osai, Murphy, and Sample over Tunsil on pass rush downs and then run Hendrickson off the offensive right side. But for whatever reason, they don't do that, even when Hubbard misses time. So I don't know. I think Hubbard was missed. I also think T was missed.
And I hate saying it like that because T is obviously missed on the offense, but I felt like the biggest problem was the defense.
Yeah, well, the first half was brutal. Like, after that first drive, I don't know if you were like, that first half was so many. Yeah, I mean, guys weren't getting open. They couldn't block, and then when they couldn't run the ball because of that, they couldn't throw the ball because guys weren't open right away.
Yeah.
It breaks down. He dumps it off to a check down, and that guy's getting swallowed up immediately. So that felt so much like cramped. And that's why I liked in the second half when they opened it up and started taking those shots down the field. It felt like, maybe I can find it somewhere, but Burrow's average depth of target in the first half versus the second half is probably like 4 to 10. It felt so different when I was watching that second half of this game. But I also think that it sure would help to have,
of course, having another number one wide receiver on the field.
6'5" gangly,
Believe me,
guy.
if somebody could tell me right now Tee Higgins is going to be healthy for Thursday Night Football, I'd be like, let's go. That's great news.
Well, with Hendrickson, that might be the most important one, but we'll see. I mean,
the defense was really disappointing today, and I was expecting Lou's unit to take care of a rookie quarterback in CJ Stroud. That's not taken away from CJ Stroud. I know he's like we've already talked about before, probably going to win Rookie of the Year. He can be in the MVP candidate conversation, but at the same time, the defense was really disappointing.
Yeah,
secondary.
We had 17 explosive plays today. The Texans did.
The secondary.
Yeah.
Cheetos.
Well, it started with the D-line, like you bring it up with Hubbard. Like, that was an issue, and they should have had another guy that could rush the passer. It's also, Hubbard's more of a run defender, but at the same time, he probably would be a better pass rusher than anybody they threw out there. Murphy, Osai, Sample. So maybe he'd log some wins against Fant on that right side. But yeah, the secondary, big letdown when Noah Brown averages 17 yards per game in his career.
We talked about him on Thursday's podcast. We said it.
Now he has like 260 yards across 2 games against the Bengals. It's almost 10 times his average.
So with the secondary, I mean, there's so many people. You're going to go back and watch your tape. We're going to talk about it on Tuesday, but you can point at CTB, you can point at Cheeto, you can point at the safety position. It felt like the tackling was a problem, but also just, I don't know. It was pretty disappointing coming off the Bills game.
Yeah. I mean, for part of this game, it did feel like CJ Stroud would just fake a handoff, run around for a second, and then just throw an 85 would be standing there wide open. Mm-hmm. I don't understand 100% why that was happening. because if I had to guess, it would be on the corners, if anybody. So, because you're not going to ask your safeties to take him man to man. I think Dax Hill had a battle with Dalton Schultz for a little while, a nice breakup, but also gave up a few plays. That's fine. The Noah Brown stuff was not fine. You're going to face much more difficult receivers. And was it a structural thing? Because that's also possible. Maybe it was something within the defensive structure that they just knew would get open, and there just wasn't an adjustment to fix it. Tough. I don't know. It felt a bit like a lot of the issue was also the run pass conflict and how bad they were at stopping the run with their front six. So they had to get maybe I haven't seen this, so I'm not 100% sure, but maybe the safeties had to come down a little bit, or maybe the linebackers just have to commit harder to the run, and that opens things up for these guys. But when I watched, I was like, how's there not some type of adjustment to stop Noah Brown of all people? I mean, I don't. Nico Collins missed this game, and it felt like, oh, okay, cool. Like the Bengals, it's a little, a little something that's an important player for them. It didn't matter. Noah Brown just did the same thing. And Tank Dell, he's a solid short receiver. He's a good player. Robert Woods, fine. Mechie, fine. Schultz, pretty good tight end. They've got some weapons, but this is not the most dangerous offense they'll face all year. I just don't understand how. I mean, you're going to commit more resources to like a Stephon Diggs and a Tyreek Hill. Like maybe the idea is just like Lou has his guys in man against Noah Brown. He's just beating them, and he's like, I'm not going to commit a bracket to Noah Brown of all people. Just step up your play, and they just couldn't. I don't know. We can't see down the field during broadcasts, so I just have to be left wondering how 85 was wide open every time that CJ Stroud threw the ball, but. Is what it is. I mean, you got to fix that if that's a structural thing for sure, though, because other teams will find that. If that's a real issue, other teams will find that and they will start exploiting it. And then you have a real, what turns from a small leak of water getting into the boat becomes a gaping hole. And now you're like, okay, we got to patch this hole because we can't have every team just run the same play and it beats us.
Yeah, it was just as I would say overall right now, and obviously you'll go back and you'll watch the tape, but it just felt disappointing from a lot of the playmakers. But honestly, it was more for me for the defensive side of the ball. You can point at Tyler Boyd dropping the ball, you can point at the red zone interceptions, but overall, you can't give up that much at home. Like you said before, you're going to see better competition on the offensive side of the ball. It felt like such a good opportunity with the Ravens losing today. And then you drop that game at home, an AFC matchup at home, have the opportunity to win it, and now you're on a short week, which that Baltimore game, you said this wasn't a must win, and that's totally fine. And I'm not one of those, the season is over right now. I do not believe that. When you have Joe Burrow, you have the best chance. I truly feel he is the best quarterback in the AFC North. It's unfortunate for some of the losses. I would look at the Baltimore Ravens game when he wasn't fully healthy, and I look at this game where there were opportunities and you want those games back. But unfortunately, that's the way the ball rolled. And I agree with you. You can look back in 2021, you can look back in 2022, and they've always kind of had those games right around this period of time of the schedule. They're at 5-4, similar to the last 2 years. But just kind of overall thoughts as we wait more news for Trey Hendrickson. He is getting an MRI, but reporters from the locker room said he didn't really see a limp when he was walking around in there. But of course, the MRI will show more and details to come on if he'll be able to go on Thursday. But just your overall picture when you look at the state of the Cincinnati Bengals right now.
I don't know. You got to beat these teams to win a championship anyway. I mean, It's not just that you have to beat the Texans and then you can lose games to the Ravens and these hard opponents. You have to beat these hard opponents. If the Bengals are a true champion, they can split with the Ravens. They could split with the Browns. They could beat the Jaguars, the Chiefs, which they've done this the past 2 years. So maybe there's some overconfidence there on my part of them being able to win tough games, but they usually play up to their opponent. The idea that they're going to go into Baltimore and get dog walked on Thursday night, I don't see it. Like, it could happen. Sure. Why not? Like, sure. I guess it could, but I don't see them going in there and just getting destroyed. Like, game's over by the end of the first quarter and people are tuning out. Like, I think it's going to be a game that goes down to the wire. It went down to the wire when Burrow was on one leg. I think he's playing better. Maybe they're without Tee Higgins. We don't know.
We don't.
Maybe they're without Trey Hendrickson. We don't know. For what it's worth, I believe Pro Football Doc said he thinks it's a MCL sprain. He did not say tear, which if they drop a game to the Ravens, I'm still not out. I mean, 5-5 is
I'm not. For some reason,
yeah.
I don't count them out when they have Joe Burrow. I truly don't. I
Well,
think they're
10-7 to me is probably enough to get you a 7 seed. And then I don't really like they're a team in the playoffs that I think they've won so many road playoff games.
yeah, I'm not worried about road. I'm
But
not. I'm honestly
not
at the end of the day, it's when you and I'm not even trying to think about postseason right now, but I think we can both agree. Season's not over today. You're 5-4. You have the Baltimore Ravens game. You want to win that game because it's AFC North, but at the same time,
like that might like if you lose to the Ravens here, that might put you out of the AFC North
yes,
race.
yes, I
Yeah,
truly
but
believe
I
that.
don't
Just
think
because everybody
it
else is
doesn't
playing
end the
well.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they could draw the Ravens in the wild card round, be fully healthy, and then win. Like I don't know. I
That's
could
what
see
they
that.
would do.
They
Because
beat the
that's what
Chiefs
they
in
would do.
Arrowhead to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to think they could win some of these games. I just think. I mean, some people go over the top with their post game reactions. It's
No,
just they could win. They could win. They could lose. If I had to pick right now, I'd pick the Ravens to win that game. But
yeah.
to me, it's like a 60-40 game. Like, I don't think it's something that they have a big advantage. Got to see some of this injury news. Got to see the Ravens injuries news. I don't know anything about like, did they have injuries?
I have
No
no
idea.
clue. I have no clue.
So,
But I will say this. I could see the Cincinnati Bengals as we're recording this right now. It's November. I could see them getting like a wild card position. And this is just me being optimistic as we end the show. But I could see them finding that way to sneak in, get a wild card, and then at some point see the Chiefs in the divisional round and find a way to win. Like they're just, I can't count them out the way that I know today was disappointing. I was in the stands and you could really tell a lot of people left there like, man, you had the opportunities. They truly did at several times, but
they
at the
didn't
same
deserve it, though. I mean,
I mean, I don't the whole deserving to win, deserving to lose thing. I would just say that there were
well, I
so
just
many.
think the Texans were the better team. Like, actually, the Bengals defense, as bad as it was, like, I think it was even worse. And they kind of played up to like we what I think some fans of other teams say when they look at stats is just like, oh, they're just a lucky defense. They kind of were like a fumbled snap and then a 50-50, was that a fumble or an incomplete pass, went their
I don't
way,
know.
and that kept them in the game a little bit. Like they were bad. They were
They,
bad,
they
bad.
were really bad. But that's the thing. Like the first overall reaction is, oh, Tyler Boyd, you had that opportunity. And like, look, I'm very disappointed that he didn't catch it in the end zone. But your defense has to get stops. We can look at the Baltimore Ravens game from week 2 and say the defense should have been able to get a stop there. And unfortunately, they couldn't get a stop in that game. So it's okay to point out that the defense wasn't good enough today. It just wasn't. And that's unfortunate because if you would have told me going into this game, I'd say I trust Lou's unit. I
Yeah.
truly Lou's going to get it done. They're going to be able to do it. And it was disappointing. You have to play better. You're going to be on the road versus Lamar. Obviously, they're just coming off a loss to the Cleveland Browns. I need to go back and see how in the world they lost that game. But
I think the Browns ran the ball well, so that's probably not going to be something the Bengals do. But also, I don't think that the Bengals are going to have as bad of a pass offense as what Deshaun Watson gave them. So who knows? How'd
who
they
knows?
lose to the Colts too?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And you could say the same thing to the Houston Texans. How do you lose to the Panthers?
Granted, yeah. I
It
think
is
parity in the league is just at an all-time high. Like any team could win, really. I mean, other than the teams that are like 1-8 and the one starting Tommy DeVito, probably they're not going to win too many games. But when you look at a lot of this middle ground, like it's grown so much that there's not that much of a top class. Like every team in the
honestly,
AFC feels beatable, and every team in the NFC feels pretty beatable. I mean, even the Eagles, I think, are 8-1 or something. They lost to the Jets.
speaking of luck, if you watch some of how some of their games have gone this season. So I mean, it
Sure.
just
Like you're always lucky when you win a lot of
yeah.
games. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of part of it
I
too.
mean, at the end of the day, I just think for the Cincinnati Bengals, like I've always kind of looked at it as disappointing today as we're recording on a Sunday. It's a week by week league. Anything can happen. Obviously, hoping for good news. Best wishes for Trey Hendrickson. Hopefully, it's very minor. It'd be awesome if he was back for the Baltimore Ravens, but obviously, we have no news on what it could be, no speculation or anything like that. We'll wait until we record on Tuesday. Hopefully, there's a positive update when it comes to Sam Hubbard. I know they'll do the weekly check in. As of last week, Zach Taylor said Tee Higgins was day to day. I know Ian Rappaport said it's a week by week thing. We'll see if he's able to go, and then Charlie Jones, maybe the return of Charlie Jones for Thursday Night Football. But it's a short week for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I agree with you. I think the overall reaction first is like, that's disappointing. I know you can look at it and say that was a good game for the way they were able to come back down 10 late in the fourth quarter. But at the same time, the opportunities were there for the offense in the first half and the second half, but the defense couldn't stop the Texans. So
Yeah, first half it felt more offensively frustrating, and the second half definitely felt to me more defensively frustrating. But the defense was more of an issue throughout the game. You man, there's a couple missed opportunities. I mean, the game was basically just a couple different plays, outcomes away from changing. And that's how a lot of football games go. And look, great game. You lose these sometimes. I know the Bengals got used to winning a lot of these games in the second half of the year, coming out the one that's 30, not 27. But is what it is. And I think the Bengals are still a good team. I think they're still in the hunt for everything. It's disappointing end to what was a very good game to me. And I don't know. Maybe I am just like
when I got on here and you were optimistic, I was like,
feeling too happy.
Maybe it's because I just left the stadium, but
that also. I think like I'm home alone, so like I just
Mm-hmm.
got to process it by myself. I feel like if you are in the stadium, everybody is all like, angry and
your
sad,
emotions go from no, they're going to lose this game by 10. Oh my goodness, they're going to come back and tie it. Oh, they might have a chance to win. Oh no, they just lost. So there was a lot of emotions when they were able to, they come back. I think we're all going to think about that last drive, that throw to Tyler Boyd. And again, I'm not putting on Tyler. I've already said it, but man, I think about it because it's like, ooh, right there. That would have probably ended it. Because the Texans would have had to, and they were able to get down the field. So who knows what would have happened. But at the end of the day, the Cincinnati Bengals, they fall to 5-4 and a little bit of a rut when it comes to the AFC North playoff picture. But the Baltimore Ravens did lose today, short week for them when they faced a huge game on Thursday Night Football. We'll talk later this week after you watch some of the tape. Maybe I hate using it already, but I guess we're kind of in the middle of the season where we can say must wins are extremely important, especially if you want to stay in the AFC North race. But as of now,
the AFC North, but not for the season, in my opinion. It's you want to, you definitely want to, but if you lose, you're still in the hunt to me. Like that's not like, they're done. They're done.
I agree. I think, let me ask you this as we wrap up. Do you think 10 wins is enough for the wild card?
I think, I mean, to me, that'd be the goal I'd shoot for sorry, that's not the goal I'd shoot for. That's what I imagine like the 7 and maybe 6 seed have. And then your 5 seed, probably 11, 12 wins because that's usually the best non-division winner. 10 wins, hard to come by. I mean, it's hard also. I still haven't gotten used to fully 10-7. Like, is that more 9-7 or is that more 10-6?
That was their Super Bowl season? They were 10-7.
Yeah, and they won the division. So, So I think 10-7 would probably be enough to get you a 7 seed. I think some people don't feel that way, and I don't know.
It'll all work out how it's supposed to.
I'd have to look at the past winners, but the Steelers were in the playoffs 2 years ago and did not deserve to be there. So. I don't know how many games they won as the 7 seed. Like you are now playing the hardest road. Like that stinks as a 7 seed. You got to go to probably, I don't know, maybe Arrowhead or somewhere week 1.
Miami or something.
Yeah, Miami just doesn't.
Miami, I don't believe them. The AFC East, all the teams outside of the AFC North just feel like, I don't know. I mean,
I still think in my mind the Bills are better than Miami, and maybe that's just because I watched the Bills kill Miami. Miami's been swallowing these bad teams, but they haven't beaten the good ones yet.
I mean, the Bills will win the division. Honestly, I truly feel like that.
And then the Jags just got trounced in San Francisco. I mean,
what happens if the Texans sneak up on them? You know what I mean?
It could be going to Houston.
I don't know if I want to relive
that's 10 years of
PTSD a little bit. But yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals overall picture right now, disappointed on the defense side of the ball. Yes, offensively they had opportunities. We'll get more updates on some of the injuries when it comes to Sam Hubbard, Tee Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson. Hopefully when we record on Tuesday, short week for the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, as we mentioned, big week versus the Baltimore Ravens. Make sure you follow Mike over on Bengals_Sands. You can check out his work, All Bengals, and follow me at LNDS Patterson. Thank you for always listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.